Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. I'm Kisma and welcome to today's episode. As you know, we don't always have guests, but we've been having a few very special guests the last couple of shows, and today is going to be another winner. I'm so pleased to have Michael Neely on the show. He is the host of the Consciously Speaking podcast and creator of your Authority Blueprint Live, which happens to be coming up in June up in California, Northern California. We'll talk about how you can get tickets to that a bit later in the show. And Michael's really about being a catalyst for change. So stay tuned, and I'm really excited for this interview. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Well, hello there, Nick.
Hello there, Kisma.
How's your week going?
Well, it's just getting started, but so far it's going fantastic.
That's right. How was your weekend? Well, you spent it with me, so I guess it was good.
Yeah, I did. No, it was great. We had a 2-day. We had some really beautiful people in for a 2-day class.
That's right. You were teaching. That's right.
So that was super fun. Yesterday was a little bit of, kind of hitting the reset button and just enjoying some nice things and doing. And here we are,
Yeah,
so really
and later this week you go to Idaho.
Yeah, my first time in Idaho. I've never been to Idaho before. It's a kind of a high level group of people, and I don't know. I didn't get a lot of information on it.
Just showing up.
Yeah, it's basically like show up here, and so I'm showing up there.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm excited.
I'll tell you all about it.
Are you taking your crystal wand?
I think I will take my no, because I don't want to fly with it.
Yeah, that's true. And it might freak out like the techie people.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll know what to do with that. So I'll probably leave the wand at home. But it'll be a good event. Yeah, I have my hands. That's all I need.
Yeah, that's all you need. All right, that's cool. More on that later, everyone. When Nick gets back, we'll be sure to do a little interview on his experiences in Idaho. For now, let's bring on our guest, Michael Neely. Michael, welcome to Illumination Podcast.
Thanks, Kisma and Nick. I'm real excited to join you guys today.
Well, I'm excited. It's interesting how we end up connecting with people that are like-minded, and you had posted something in a Facebook group that I hardly ever really comment, but I was like, oh, this guy's so cool. I want to talk to him. And I had the pleasure of being on your podcast, Consciously Speaking, and now here you are with us. And I would love to hear in your words for our listeners, because you're new to the show, what is it that you do and are passionate about? You're playing a big role out there in the space of podcasting and publishing, entrepreneurial. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I consider myself kind of a consciousness evangelist, if you will, a little bit. My big mission is to wake up the planet in any way that I can. And I started out coaching individuals and helping people in their own process. And then out of that evolved my podcast so I can reach others. And then beyond that, it's grown even further because, and I'm sure you guys experience this as well. People start asking you, well, how do you do a podcast? And how did you start and all that? And so I really started helping other like-minded people with a vision to get their message out to the world as well through podcasting and other forms of modern media.
That's so cool. When you talk about waking people up, like if there was one thing that you could wake people up to, what would that be?
We as a society really need to be more conscious of the bigger picture, the planet as a whole, the people as a whole. We need to get past the skin color boundaries and all the things that separate us and understand that we're all children of this planet, Mother Earth, that we share. And we need to really bring more mindfulness to that, to each other, and to taking care of our home here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You mentioned that the skin color thing, that it's funny to me that is still a thing. Like it just seems in my brain, it seems absolutely absurd that would even be a consideration. Like we're human beings, beyond that, but yet time and time again, we prove that
it is an issue.
That is an issue, and it's not resolved. And we need to do some work on that. Like, that's really important.
Yeah, totally. I was just at an event this weekend, and one of the women there, we were doing some really deep sharing, and she is a Hispanic woman, and she said, "I'm afraid of white people." And that it just saddened my heart to think that.
Yeah.
When did this passion to wake up the planet, the people on it, when did it start to percolate? I mean, did you come in this way, like ready to evolve? You know, I know you have an interesting past I want to talk about, but usually what I found is there's oftentimes an event or a series of events that can transform one into leading the transformation.
Yeah, because that's a great question. Sadly, I don't really have a story of like an instant where all of a sudden a massive shift happened. But I think it was more of kind of the soup that I was cooking in over time. That it really just was a slow evolution to where I'm at today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And a bit about the soup. What was that? What was going on in that stew? What was your life like? Growing up in a happy family? Did you grow up in California? I know that's where you are now, up in Santa Cruz. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in Santa Cruz, but I'm a Midwestern boy, and you may
like us.
Yeah, you may pick up a little bit of that in my accent. People still say that they ask where I'm from because they know it's not California, but I grew up in a great family. I love my family, and we were probably middle class at best, as far as income goes, but it didn't feel that way growing up. And then I came to college out here in California, and I think that started to open my eyes a bit more. Totally different landscape compared to the small town I was from. And I pursued an acting career, which was interesting in the respect that I really wanted to get into human psyche and understand the ways that we interact in the world and why we do what we do. And so that kind of just started the process. I started, reading stuff by the greats like Earl Nightingale and then later Tony Robbins, and did landmark education. So all of this stuff that I was using in my acting career was also creating this delicious soup that I was in. So.
Right.
Yeah. It seems like you can't really go through acting and become an actor without really examining yourself, totally. on a certain level, to really understand all those different aspects of yourself and how to bring that out. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, what's that? I don't have any experience for that. I'm a trumpet player. I'm a musician. I'm a trumpet player, but as far as acting, like not a clue. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, Nick, I'm happy to. One of my teachers, I think, put it the best when she said to our acting class one time, she said, "I have such great respect for actors because they are willing to go on stage and bare their souls in front of people night after night." And it really resonated with me because that's truly what you do when you're, doing a quality show. I mean, yeah, there's comedy and, sketchy type stuff that's, you don't have to go that deep. But if you're really, doing your work as an actor and harnessing and practicing your craft, then yeah, you just kind of like peel back the curtain and show the depths of your heart and soul, and it can be pretty raw.
Yeah.
Was there a particular performance or moment that you remember that really hit you deeply?
Yeah, I did a performance one time where it was a tough one for me because it went so against my grain, but it's also one of those situations where who knows how it would be. But I played a father of an autistic child that was a super challenge to raise. And the father, the character, ends up leaving them and just kind of running away from it all. And then there was this speech which I gave, which I'm trying to recall if it was actually, I was reading of the letter that I had left. I can't remember if it was a letter that I had left or if it was a call and a message that I had left, but it kind of expressed how it just, couldn't take it anymore type of thing. And, it was a tough one.
That's a tough one. And I'm sure based on some reality, it's parenting, raising children, raising families seems to be going through a cycle where in many ways, as we have access to more and more information, the parenting or the family unit becomes challenged. Have you found that with your clients or when people come to you? It's like, we're in this information age. Yeah, this information may as well be distracting us from what's most important.
Yeah, it is a super challenge because I know my son is 15 and a half now. And the only reason I'm saying the half part, which I'll stop soon, but it's at 15 and a half, you can get your learner's permit. So he really wants.
Oh, golly. Oh, I feel for you.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm blessed. I think partially because of the work that I've done in the realm of conscious living and communications is that we've got a beautiful relationship. I mean, he's as tall as I am, but he'll still, sit on my lap and snuggle with me or when we watch TV or something, just because he likes to be close to his papa. And we've got a great relationship. And yeah, sometimes it's strained with technology and stuff, but we just try to keep an open communication about it all. And we seem to be navigating it well. I hope that other people are doing so too.
Yeah, that's great. Is there a certain, attitude? Of course, you obviously have a lot of love for your son, and he has love and respect for you. Is there a certain way of being around him? Like, I know that a lot of parents will ask a lot of questions, right? Or want to know everything. Do you give him a bit more freedom, or do you find that you just are blessed with a beautiful relationship without really trying or working at it?
I'm going to say something here that could be a little controversial with some of the listeners because, well, I'm not your everyday parent in many respects. And so, for instance, we live in California where, marijuana has now been legalized. And, he's at that age where he wants to try pot and he wants to drink. But my rule is do it here if you're going to do it. I want to know about it. I want to monitor it. But because the other part is that I think that we can deceive ourselves as parents. Right. And we can say, no, there will absolutely be none of that. But all you're doing is forcing it under the rug. They're going to find a way. They're going to sneak around and then they're going to lie to you. And I found that just by being very clear with him and requesting honesty and giving him that extra freedom, that he's very open with me about all of it.
I like that because there is, and there can be a pretend stage, right? Everything's fine. My kid's not, and to some of you listeners, your kids might not be doing, we're not saying everyone is, but we have to be realistic, I think, in the times and what is going on. And, pretending doesn't really help anything. It can sometimes feel easier at the moment. Yet when down the road, there's stronger trials or tribulations or the relationship has been fractured, it's not going to feel so great. So I appreciate that honesty.
Yeah. And because of it, he is so open with me and frequently, whereas a lot of kids may go to other houses and go to parties and then you don't know where your child is. He comes here. His friends come here because they know it's a safe space and they know that, they're not going to be chastised about it. But I, of course, lay down rules like, you're staying here, and none of them are driving yet. And so,
right.
Yeah. Some of the fears I don't have to worry about at the moment, but we keep it a safe place. And
yeah.
Well, you bring up a really interesting topic that's come up on our show a few different times. Now, talking about raising consciousness and raising awareness, and then drug use, and I'm wondering your thoughts on that. About do drugs have a place in that process? And if so, what is that place? And what are some of the counterindications around that? Like, can you share a few of your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd love to. And boy, oh boy, you guys are digging deep.
Welcome to Illumination Podcast, everyone. We don't hold back.
Yeah. I like it. Well, I am a firm believer in all things in context. And so I have done medicine journeys where I've been guided by a shaman or other experts in that realm. And I have facilitated medicine journeys with other people. And when I say medicine, it could be anything from ayahuasca to MDMA. And I believe there's great value to be had in the study of doing that. The epiphanies that I've had in journey space has been tremendous in opening my own consciousness and expanding my own view of the world and myself. And it's been fabulous.
And your key word was expert. I think for those that choose to go on that journey, be with someone who is the expert. I could see you holding that space really beautifully for people. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. So a bit about you acting. How many years did you spend in LA as an actor?
It was mixed between LA and New York. I spent
cool.
20 years professionally as an actor. And part of that time I was bi-coastal. I had a place in both coasts sharing with other actors, where you'd fly to wherever the work was.
Yeah.
And, so 20 total years doing that.
Wow. And I can see where the work that you're doing now evolved as you were acting, but was it a blast or was it just a lot of hard work that you kind of go, wow, I don't know how I got through that?
Oh no, it was total fun. And
was it?
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys know the Enneagram very well at all, but I'm a type 7 on the Enneagram.
Cool. I don't know. No, I don't know.
Yeah, no, tell us about that. Yeah.
Okay, so the Enneagram is 9 distinct personality types, and there's lots of work and study around it and everything. But the 7 is known as the epicure or the enthusiast.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It just makes total sense for me. Like I got bit with the acting bug in the 4th grade, and I'm like, I know I want to be an actor. And the cool thing is like, well, it's a lot of people, you go up and you get your career and that's your profession. That's what you do for your entire life. Well, for me, I can be a gladiator or a knight or an astronaut or, whatever. I could be all of these things. And that was just so cool.
I love that. That is amazing. I could see that. And then, so when did the move into this catalyst changer, the human that really wants to step in and help wake up the planet, when did this all start to come about?
I think the transitional phase started with the birth of my son down in LA. I was living there at the time, and we decided not to raise him in LA in the smog. And so we left there to move up to Santa Cruz in 2004. And then I'll be honest, I floundered for a while. You think about it, you kind of know what your purpose is. I knew ever since 4th grade, I'm going to be an actor. And then all of a sudden, you're not acting anymore. It's like, oh, crap, what am I here to do? And so I started out just following the dollar, chasing the ever-loved green. And so that led me into the advertising world and then the pharmaceutical world, the legal ones, in the pharmaceutical industry. And then I went to work in a technology startup.
Cool.
I created a tech startup. And all the while, though, it was just feeling, I was super hollow inside. I felt unfulfilled, like my creative juices weren't getting satisfied. And then also I didn't feel like I was having the impact I wanted to have. And so that's kind of where I started. I started coaching people on the side. And then that picked up more and more until, the shift, the technology hit the end of its runway, and then I moved fully into coaching.
What sort of things were people first showing up to be coached on with you? Like, what were they looking for?
Well, it's an interesting question, Nick. I stumbled upon a concept while I was in the pharmaceutical industry, and I'll just share quickly with you a little piece of it, and that is like the double-blind study, which you're probably familiar with, but for those who may not be, it's that the physician was not allowed to know in a particular drug study whether they were giving the patient the placebo or the actual drug. Now, I can understand why the patient wouldn't get to know. That's the first part of what would be a blind study. But now the doctor didn't get to know either. And at first that baffled me, like, well, why does it matter? They're not the one taking the drug. But time and again, statistics prove that their knowing had a significant impact on the outcome.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I started to really look at that, and I thought, okay, this is interesting. This applies to us in life, in everything. If you go into a situation and you have an expected outcome, you're actually impacting the results.
Absolutely. 100% agree. That I love how you arrived with that. That's an amazing study.
It was so cool. And so I started to tie this in with other stuff that I was seeing in the world, partially in the pharmaceutical industry, but also in the other work I'd done in the study of ontology. And I started to put it together in my book called The Art of Forgetting. And as that process, then people started to want to hear more about the book and learn what I was laying down in that. And so I started coaching from that perspective. And that's kind of how that piece came to fruition.
That's cool. That's really a neat story.
It is. Yeah. It's super powerful too. I love the title of The Art of Forgetting. It's like,
no stories.
Yeah. It really just speaks to that fundamental truth of like the work is really just in forgetting everything that we know. and remembering that one, that one thing that gets buried underneath all that, which is like, you're it.
Yeah.
You're the deal. You're the one.
And the thing is, Nick, is that we're set up in life for this, because even from, when you first go into school, or even before that, it's like learning what words are. You got to remember stuff, and then you got to remember your alphabet, and then you got to remember your times tables. And we're designed to remember stuff. But then what happened is we crisscrossed paths, and we started to remember things that change, things that are static, but we started to think of them as like set in stone. And that's where everything got all messed up.
It's like language in particular. It's something that we've become so dependent on, and it adds this whole layer of and filter that all the information when we're communicating goes through language, and that is inherently limiting. Mm-hmm. Totally. There are certain things that you simply cannot put into words, and because they're so far beyond that, and yet we're limited in communicating that to words, right. It just is, that's just one of those things. It's like forgetting about that and getting back to that, kind of almost that primal, human self that sees and knows, bypassing all of that. Such a powerful thing.
So bringing it to, you have your podcast. Do you remember what in your first guest or when all that kicked off?
Yeah, when I first launched my podcast, I knew a lot of people in this realm of conscious thought, and I knew, I was studying Buddhism at the time, and I had my guiding teacher that I wanted to have on the show, and so Bob Stahl was one of my first people, and so I had a bunch of great guests in my local community, and then it just kind of expanded out from there and exploded.
Yeah, it's a beautiful podcast. So we'll make sure that's up in our show notes as well. And then tell us about this very special event that you're holding in June, and that you seem to do. I don't know how many you've held so far, but it's your authority blueprint.
Yeah. So the whole concept of growing your message and getting that out into the world, for me, is about being an authority on your subject. And if you look at the word authority, it has author in it. And so frequently it was, so-and-so wrote the book on this or that, and they became the authority on that topic. Well, with the change of technology today, with podcasts becoming so popular and blogging and speaking events and everything else, there are a lot of ways to put forth your authority. And in your authority blueprint, I really work with what I consider the 4 foundational pillars of authority, which are podcasting, virtual summits, speaking from stage, and getting published. And when you work those 4 in a way that intertwines them, they really create magic and kind of an upward spiral that can catapult someone onto the scene as the expert in their field much faster than if they just tried any one of them individually. I kind of equate it like, if you have a podcast, that's a part, and you call that the wheel. And then if you've got, your line up speaking gigs, or you have a book, that might be another part, be it a door or axle or whatever. But each one individually is parts. But when you put it all together, you can have it work like a machine that will really transport you. And so at Your Authority Blueprint Live, we're going to be helping people to get that machine built for themselves, or at least a blueprint of how they could do that over the course of those 3 days.
It sounds like kind of like making the perfect storm for,
exactly.
For that buzz around you and your name and your work. Who would this be for? Like who would be the best person, best type of people to, to attend this to attend your event and get a ton out of it?
Yeah, I would say it's good for coaches, consultants, people who are, kind of their own business, what I call solopreneurs. Like you have a business, but you're the face of the business and kind of wear all the hats. And it's also good for authors, someone who may already have a blog or may have written a book, but they want to really take it to the next level. It's great for speakers, and it's great for healers and holistic practitioners who really want to start to get their message out to them.
I know it's going to be amazing. One question I have, what about, say if we have some listeners out there and they're like, I'm really thinking about leaving corporate and starting something. Is this a good way for them to see all the possibilities of how they can launch or begin to build their name?
It absolutely is, Kismet. There is a thing on the site, like if someone were to go to the ticketing page, where I say that if if you haven't really already started your business, I would say maybe this is not for you. However, I love the way that you just framed that. And that is that someone who's thinking about it, this would be a great place for them to get that inspiration and an idea of conceptually, I can make this happen. So,
right. And to understand the moving parts. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. I have a few people in mind.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great question, and brings up a kind of an interesting topic about making that transition into an entrepreneurship and having a map of that or a blueprint, so to speak, of kind of understanding some of the pieces at play can really help to gain that 30,000 foot view of, okay, this is where I'm going. Because I think when you're down in it, it seems like there's just so many different things and so many different ways to go that if you don't have some kind of structure to it, you just get swept away in the tidal wave of to-dos before you even know what happened. And you never get to make that transition, So I think that's awesome.
I look at it like, Nick, what you're saying is I look at it kind of like that expression, how do you eat an elephant? And it is, you eat it one bite at a time. But the point is, when you're looking at that elephant thing, there is no freaking way. And so I like to break it down to step by step, do this, then do this, then do this, kind of give an order and a set way to it. And then it makes it so much simpler, and you stop worrying about the bigger picture and just do the little pieces along the way.
Do the little pieces, do the chunks, and allow them to fit in. Tell me a bit about your view on publishing, especially at the event. And are you focused on book, on blogs? Some people say blogs are dead because we should be doing more video and podcasting. What's your impression on that?
Well, I do think they feed each other, and I still think a book is important. And just this kind of circles back around a little bit to part of what prompted me to start the podcast. Was after I created my book idea, I was speaking to my guiding teacher. I'd mentioned Bob Stahl, and his publisher is New Harbinger. And he introduced me to them and told them about my book, and they were very interested, and they sent me an acquisitions questionnaire. And so I'm filling this out, and as I'm going through there, the questions started to get very interesting. It said, how many Facebook followers do you have? How many followers on Twitter? How big is your mailing list? And it made me start to realize, wait a minute, they're wanting to know how many books can I sell?
Oh, yeah.
And so it made me realize that, okay, well, first of all, I'm going to need to build a platform, whether I self-publish or even use a larger publisher. They want to know that you're going to be able to move some books. And so I still think publishing is super important. And the difference is this, though, and this is why I would tell someone, don't do your book first, is because when you do get your book out, your book should reference your podcast. It should reference any virtual summits that you do and talk about your speaking gigs. And you should have links in your book that will direct people to resources that you have on your website. So the book actually becomes a circulatory system where everything feeds upon each other. And so that's why I still think it's important, but do that last.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's the right on approach too. Oftentimes I've seen so many people that they want to go right to that piece, and before they've really even, built a practice for themselves, whether it's coaching practice, consulting, training. And I'm always of the mind of, number one, get out there and help some people. And number two is make some money doing it, because none of those things are necessarily free. It all is, it continues to take resources in order to build that platform. And when you have a business helping people, doing what you love and generating revenue while you do it, now you're in the pole position. And I just think that's really important. A lot of people kind of skip that step and want to go right to being the authority. It's like, well, how many people have you helped? You go out there and help some folks.
Yeah. And I love too, Nick, that you mentioned about the making money part of it, because there are so many people in the realm of that I work in, and the conscious healers and so forth, that they have this dilemma around the money piece. They're like, I should practice my gifts for free. But the truth is, making more money at it allows you to serve more people.
Yeah. Don't even get us started.
We can't get started. It's important. And I know that, Michael, you and I talked about this on your podcast. Money's a great energy. And when somebody can be of service, like for you coaches and healers and however you're serving people out there, as well, when somebody invests, they show up differently.
Yes.
And when we allow this wheel of, well, let me just give my gifts for free, karmically things get funky. They really do get funky, and it doesn't serve anybody. Somebody ends up paying down the road, and it's not always a great payment. Mm-hmm. So I think it's that respect of the healing arts, of healing, as we've gone through such a cycle of, we're in the late 1700s, early 1800s. People understood intuitive healing. They did it. They were happy to go to someone to be healed. And then there was a period of time where Western medicine came in, and yes, Western medicine is amazing and necessary, yet it sort of wiped out some of those healing arts, and they're coming back around. And I do believe, as you know, that they need to come back around with gusto and respect. It's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so with you on that. And I think this is part of the challenge of waking up. It's like we've gone to sleep so much around things that we probably knew so much better 100, 200, even sometimes more long ago than that.
Right.
That we've lost them along the way, because I think technology and everything else is advancing more rapidly than our souls are keeping up with.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. We did a whole podcast episode on that. It's like really keeping your human technology, your human technology up to date and ready to deal with the modern world, which can be so overwhelming.
And the flip side of that too is that we rely on the Google and the Facebooks and the tweets and all that. And we have access to so much information when we just tap in and get quiet. And I think that some of the apps like Headspace, all those things are cool for focus. They're not really meditating. That's not a spiritual journey. It's a focus journey. It is going to help people. But sometimes we need to remove the technology and remember that we've got the ultimate technology as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, tell our listeners how they can listen to your podcast.
So my podcast, and actually I want to add, I just launched a new one too, but my first podcast, Consciously Speaking, just happened. My podcast, Consciously Speaking, they can find on iTunes, Stitcher, and anywhere else that you for your podcasts. And you can also find it at michaelneely.com if you want to check it out.
And we'll make sure it's in our show notes too.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And my new one is called Buy This, Not That. And it is what I call an entrepreneurial tool review show. It's kind of like the Consumer Reports for solopreneurs. And I review technology that we use, like either CRMs or webinar platforms or stuff along those lines. And then even the trainers of particular stuff. So, maybe you've selected a great webinar platform and you're about to launch a webinar, but you're not quite sure how to set up that whole sequencing to have it, convert as well as you'd like it to. And so you may want to find somebody who trains on that. And so I'll even be reviewing the trainers, the teachers of these courses on different things that we use too.
That's amazing. How did that just birth? Like, did that happen in the last 48 hours or what?
Well, actually, this one's taken a bit longer. My first podcast came out like fast. This one was over a year in the thinking. And I say that simply because I think I overthought it, literally. And finally, just a couple weeks ago, I was appearing at New Media Summit down in San Diego. And I had mentioned it at the last New Media Summit. And I thought, crap, if I go back again and this thing still hasn't launched, I'm going to be embarrassed. And
someone else is going to do it, right? The ideas in the universe. I think that's cool. Yeah, I love that.
Oh, man, what I wouldn't have given for something like that when we first started, huh?
Heck yeah.
I mean, you go down the road with all the different technologies and all the different, there's just so much in so many different places that you can go to get like a real honest appraisal of, what this is, what it does, what it doesn't do, what's cool, what's not, and then how that might fit in your business. Man, that is priceless.
Great. Good on you. That is going to be
cool. And Nick, you kind of nailed it with what you just said as to why it's taken me so long is that to make that valuable, I thought, well, if I'm going to talk about CRMs, then I need to have reviews of 5 different CRMs all ready to go at once so that someone going there will get it all and can make up their mind. And that's like wrangling kittens to get these different companies to get back in touch with me to do the interviews. And finally I said, all right, heck with it. I'm just going to get it launched and I'm just going to start releasing what I got when I got it.
So, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I know that the consistency of like, having a podcast episode a week or, whatever your schedule is for is really good. But some of the best podcasts I know, they put so much time and effort into it. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get an episode out. And when it does come out, it's awesome, and people are, it's really, really well done. So I appreciate that approach for sure. And also, just on behalf of the entire entrepreneurial community, just a heartfelt thank you for putting in the time and effort and energy to do that. I know it's no small feat.
Yeah.
You got that right. Well, you're very welcome. Thank you for.
And tell our listeners how they can find more information. Again, we'll have it in our show notes, but for your Authority Blueprint Live event.
Yeah, so I think pretty much everybody by now should know about how to use bit.ly links. So you just go to bit.ly/YAB live, and the YAB for your Authority Blueprint is all caps, and live is all lowercase.
Okay, we'll get that in the show notes too. And it's June 25th through 27th. Is that correct in Monterey?
25th, yes, 25th through 27th, Monterey, California. It's an oceanfront hotel. It's going to be absolutely stunning. The ballroom where we're having the event space has one full wall of windows looking out at the ocean. And my wife does her events there, and frequently we have to stop because of a whale sighting. We all go rush to the window.
Oh, that is so cool.
Wow. Yeah, Monterey is absolutely lovely. Yeah, absolutely lovely. Wow. I love that. You really do it up right there, Michael.
Well, I love that you say that, Nick, because here's the thing is this is one of the things that I want people to understand. And it's kind of the way that I've approached life now after having done the work and waking up that I have, is that I want people, when they show up, to feel like they've already arrived. You are already the authority that you're becoming. And so I wanted to make it something that will have people feel into that. And so that was part of why I wanted to do it there.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it. And before we go, I always ask this question of our guests. Is there anything that you want to do during this lifetime that you've yet to tell anybody?
I want to go on a boat cruise up through Alaska. How about that?
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So be it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to buy you the cruise, but I think that you should start setting the date. That would such beautiful land, right? Have you been up there?
I have not, but it just looks gorgeous. And it's another one of those things that I worry about with our planet, that we're losing so much of the polar ice caps and everything. It's like, I would love to go see the beauty of that.
Well, I wish that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had, I did a training, we teach, energy mastery is like a healing system. And I had a lady come down from Alaska this past weekend, and she spoke so beautifully about her, about the state and the land and just how special it is. And she also talked about, the changes that we see down here are one level, and what they're seeing at the on the poles is extremely dramatic. It's really profound, just things that they haven't seen ever, in their lifetimes. Some really profound shifts. And she was a beautiful soul. Like, she wasn't really like worried in the sense of, the world's going, everybody's going to die or anything like that. But she was like, it's very interesting. And we've just never seen anything like it. So we're just kind of along for the ride and enjoying our country.
Time to go.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for spending time with us here. You're definitely a precious soul on the planet. And for all our listeners, we're going to make sure that the links to Michael's podcast, his book, and the upcoming event are right there for you. And make sure you follow this human, because he's got some really good things to share and teach with humanity.
Thank you so much, Kisma. And I also want to add one little piece here. If your audience is interested, I'd like to make a special gift to everybody, that if anybody does want to come to the event, if they use the code KISMA at checkout, just all capital, KISMA, they'll get $100 off of whichever ticket they choose.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing. We'll make sure that's in the show notes too. So you heard it, everyone, $100 off. I know Nick and we have an event that weekend, but we might be able to figure out a day or two. So I'm still looking at our schedule and see if I can make something work. So I might see people there. To be cool. So much gratitude and many blessings to you, Michael, for being on the show.
Thank you both. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Kisma. Such a pleasure. You guys are rocking the planet with what you're up to in the world. I so appreciate you both, and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste, everyone. Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.